Hello and welcome to You Really Shouldn't Have, with me, James Warwick, the podcast where each week I sit down with a different guest to discuss their career and the story behind the worst gift they've ever been given. Joining me on this episode is entrepreneur, master storyteller, comedy lover, and ideas machine, the joy pusher, Eran Thomson. Eran sat down with me to discuss his career, his latest project, Song Saga, a game based around music and storytelling, and we even play a round of it right here on the show. And of course, he lets me in on the worst gift he's ever been given. Eran, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, James. Pleasure to be on this show with you as well.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Now, you're known as the joy pusher. So how exactly do you define that?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that I think, a lot of people can spend a lot of time on is trying to define their unique ability or find their purpose or describe how they fit into the world. And because I've always been so interested in so many things, it's always been really hard for me to kind of put myself in that easy, simple box. And so in a recent kind of personal rebranding experiment, I landed upon this idea of the joy pusher. And basically, the reason that stuck is because if I look back across my career, all the different things that I've been involved with, whether it's advertising, entertainment, innovation, writing, running corporate training workshops, giving talks, and probably just about everything I've ever done in my life, the one thing that kind of runs constant through them has always been a pursuit of or an interest in delivering joy to people, right? Whether that's helping them make the world a better place with their own ideas, with our ideas, or with my ideas, and kind of using creativity and innovation and storytelling where appropriate and humor where appropriate to kind of help people find some levity in their life.
Fantastic. I wanted to touch a bit on storytelling because I know you've done quite a few things. I mean, you've worked in creative direction, script writing, and I know you've also got a passion for stand-up comedy and improv comedy as well. And all of those things involve storytelling, as does your latest product, Song Saga. How much of an importance do you place on storytelling as a life skill?
Obviously, I have a bias because of all the things you just mentioned, but I think it's very, very important. Probably one of the most important things you can do is be able to tell an engaging story, whether you're a person or a brand, right? I mean, there are whole facets of the advertising industry focused on helping brands get better at telling their brand story, whatever that might be. When you think of celebrities or famous people, you often think of the story, and the story might be a specific story they tell, like, oh, Richard Branson, he's the guy that jumped out of an airplane and parachuted, down into the middle of London. Or the brand story is that he's the vagabond entrepreneur whose ideas can't fail, right? But either way, there's a story. And I think, in the history of mankind, before the written word, even storytelling was how all knowledge was passed down. So I feel like it's in our DNA as human beings to appreciate stories well told and to have almost an automatic bias to want to hear them and be willing to listen to them. And, podcasting, I think, is a recent testament to that. Now, obviously, podcasting has been around forever, but at its core, it's everybody with a microphone and a computer can tell their story and share it with the world. And I think we're seeing constant rise in podcasting, and I think that's further testament to the power of story.
Absolutely. I think we've seen a big rise in it, certainly during this COVID pandemic as well. I think we've seen a lot of new shows coming onto the podcasting space.
It's true. Yeah. Who knows how many of them will be around when everyone goes back to work, but certainly a lot of people are having fun. And I think, it's bringing, obviously there's a lot of new, interesting takes on the format, which I love.
I know you're originally from the States, but you now reside in Australia. And I know whilst in Australia, you set up the Laugh Masters Academy. So I wondered how that project came about. And obviously you're a big lover of comedy. So I'm sure that had a key factor in it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of comedy. But what's interesting about setting up Laugh Masters Academy, which was, for those of you who don't know, Laugh Masters Academy is Australia's sort of first Chicago style or US style long form improv and sketch comedy school. And the way that I came about setting it up was really selfish and really me being optimistic and naive. And the backstory is basically I was in Los Angeles. I was still living in Sydney, but I'd gone back to Los Angeles to write a screenplay for a director there. And while I was in LA, like everyone in LA, I decided to take an improv class. And the reason I decided to take it was less about being a performer or trying to be funny, and more about the fact that I thought it would make me a better writer, and that it might make me better at working with actors on a set. And so I jumped into my first improv class thinking that I was going to be awesome at it because I love comedy and I'm the funny one among my friends. And I was like, I walked in there, I was like, I'm going to rule improv. And what I subsequently learned is that everything most people think about improv is wrong, starting with the biggest myth of all, which is that improv comedy is about trying to be funny. And it really isn't. It's really about learning to stay present, stay aware, be in the moment, and respond authentically to whatever's just been said. And if you're in there and you're trying to be funny like I was, then you're ruining the class for everyone else in it, and you're ruining it for yourself. And when I clocked this, I kind of had to step back, kind of go back to beginner's mind and go, okay, I don't actually know what this is. What is it? And then what I fell in love with was the life skills, the ability to learn how to actively listen, use eye contact, avoid putting all the cognitive load on whoever you're talking with by asking questions without giving yes and statements. And then finding that you could use all those things as tools for innovation, improved communication, collaboration. And that's what I fell in love with. So when I came back to Sydney after the screenplay was done, I wanted to continue that journey and continue learning more about this kind of craft. And there was nobody in Australia that was teaching it at the level that I had been offered in the US. So very selfishly, I flew instructors out from LA to kind of run some weekend workshops. And I sold a corporate training workshop in between there to kind of offset some of the costs. And to make a long story very short, at the end of that experience, I decided I was never going to do it again because it was so much work and so much trouble. And it would just be easier to fly back to LA and take a class next time I wanted to do that. But then something horribly magical happened, which was one of the students was like, hey, I just moved here from New York and I used to teach improv and I'd love to teach. And so he ran an 8-week class, like a level 1. And then at the end of that, people were like, when's level 2? And, fast forward 9 years and now we're in Melbourne, Parramatta, New South Wales, and Sydney, New South Wales.
Wow. It's incredible. Now, I know you're a big lover of words. You're very much a wordsmith, and that is very apparent in your podcast. We were talking about people setting up podcasts and doing podcasting, and you also do your own podcast, One Word Suggestion, which I've really been enjoying. It's a really great concept, really quick fire, easy to listen to. Do tell us a bit more about it and how you came up with the idea.
Thanks, James, and thanks for checking it out. Yeah, so One Word Suggestion is, again, a byproduct of the improv training that we were doing. And if you've never been to an improv show, almost every improv show anywhere in the world starts with the performers on stage asking the audience for one word that they can use to sort of build the world and create a show around. And so that was sort of the impetus for, or the inspiration for this podcast. And what I do on it is I take one word suggestions from an audience, but then I use that word to respond in a frame that shows and demonstrates and proves how using the power of improvisation in your professional life and your personal life can have a dramatic positive impact, right? For all the reasons that I shared before about, what I fell in love with when I decided to set up Laugh Masters Academy. So that the business side, the corporate training business side of our school is called PowerProv. And PowerProv is sort of the brand behind One Word Suggestion. But what I love about it is, as you said, it's a 3-minute podcast. It's very digestible, quick hits. We call it like your toolkit for a toolkit for better communication. So yeah, check it out.
I did notice when looking through, you hadn't yet done the word gift. So I was hoping I might be able to suggest the word gift for you off the back of coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I will use gift. I've been looking for one more word to finish the year. And so gift it shall be.
Gift
and,
it is.
It's such a great word for improv too, because when you're on stage performing with your fellow players and someone kind of tees you up to do something awesome and hilarious and great, that's called a gift in improv terminology. And then one of the things that we teach people in our corporate training is to look for those gifts in everyday life. When it's not so much about compliments or telling you that, you've done something well. It's more about just looking for those statements or words that people say to you that open up possibility or create opportunity. And we love that. So gift is a great word and I will definitely use it. Thank you.
Okay, Eran, it's come to that important part of the show. What is the worst gift you've ever been given?
The worst gift I've ever been given started off as the best gift I've ever been given. And the reason for that is when I was a young child growing up, my parents didn't have much money. And one of the things that my mom did to save money was she often made my clothes for me. She knew how to sew. And, as a young child, as a really young child, it doesn't bother you. But then you get to an age where you're like, wait a minute, I'm not into wearing pants my mom made or shirts my mom made. And so I was really self-conscious about the fact that I was wearing homemade clothes. And I had some cousins who lived on the other side of the country. And every year for Christmas, I think because they probably felt bad for me, they would send me store-bought clothes, right? And I used to get so excited because, oh, right, real jeans or a real sweater, whatever. And, but because they lived on the other side of the country, they often got the size wrong, right? Because they hadn't seen me, so these great clothes would come and I'd be so excited, but then they wouldn't fit and I'd be super disappointed. Yeah. So after a couple of years or a few years of this kind of pattern, one year they got it exactly right with this tan V-neck sweater, right? That had a little white fleur-de-lis on the chest. And I was so excited. I couldn't believe I got this cool, awesome sweater. And I decided that I was going to wear it for school picture day. And so I woke up on the morning of school picture day and my mom, unbeknownst to me, had sewn a blue horse with button hair and button eyes and yarn hair onto the front of this sweater.
No.
And I was just like, no, and it's obviously like, you can't take it off because I have to go to school and it's school picture day. And I was just like gutted, completely ruined and sad. And I still have that photo and you can see my little pouty face.
Amazing.
Just like, this is the worst. I couldn't believe that she did it. And I think it scarred me for life. I think it made it hard for me to accept gifts from other people in a way. And it certainly, made me pay a lot more attention to my clothing as an adult when I could choose what I wanted to wear, or a young adult when I could choose what I wanted to wear. So, yeah. But anyway, so it was the worst gift for me was the V-neck tan sweater or jumper, as you call them, that my mom sewed a blue horse onto for school picture day.
Now, I wanted to move on to your latest product, which is a brand new game called Song Saga, which I checked out when you sent me the info over, and I'm a big lover of music, and I'm a big lover of games, so this ticks all the boxes for me. So where did the idea first come from, and once you had the idea, what steps did you have to take to bring that project to the market? Yeah,
so probably one of my biggest challenges has been fending off all the ideas that I have and the inordinate amount of optimism and confidence I have that I can bring them to market. And so my wife is always telling me, don't start another idea without checking with me first. So when we had the idea for Song Saga, I was like, can I do this? And she was like, yeah, go for it. I think it's got legs. So the origin story is basically, I think probably like 10 years ago now, Steve Jobs famously said that, he held up the first iPod and said, 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? Yeah. And that was huge, right? Now it's all the songs in your pocket, right? You've got 60 million songs in your pocket if you've got Spotify or Amazon Music or Apple Music. And so for me, I was like, how could we possibly gamify this, right? Because it's such a weird thing. You've got the biggest music library ever and everyone has it. So it sort of was sitting in the back of my mind trying to figure out how could I do something interesting with that fact. And then we went to a dinner party with some friends, and after dinner, we're sitting around drinking some wine, listening to music. And it happened to be the anniversary of my father-in-law's passing. And my wife said, hey guys, do you mind, given it's the anniversary of my father's passing, if I play a song that reminds me of him? We're like, of course not. So she played a Beatles song, doo-doo-doo, that one, and
Here Comes the Sun.
Here Comes the Sun. Yeah, and she told this great story about how she bonded over music with her dad, dancing in his wood shop in the sawdust, and he kept his stereo and records in the wood shop because her mom didn't want them blasting the music loud in the house. And so she would go there after school and hang out and spend time with him and discover what new music he'd bought. And so that was this beautiful story. And then one of her other friends was like, well, hey, I have a song that reminds me of my dad. And she told this less sweet story about growing up in a super religious household where she felt like she needed to escape and find her own truth and find herself, and running away from home as a teenager. And then she played Losing My Religion by REM. And then I told a funny story about hearing my dad swearing upstairs when he didn't know I was home, when he was trying to fix something in the bathroom. And then our friend, another friend, played this hilarious like kids song about bath time, because the last memory he had of his dad before his dad left was playing in the tub with him. And it was like, scrubby dubby dubby, bath time's fun, everybody get clean, everyone, whatever it was. And I was like, oh my God, we've heard these stories from each other that we would never have organically just decided to tell you, right? I'm not just going to come out and tell you about escaping a religious household or having baths with my dad, right? And there's also this music component where you're either remembering songs you used to love or hearing songs you've never heard before. And this, what I clocked in that moment was, this is about reconnecting not only with your own authentic self and your own history and realizing you've had a cool, interesting life, but hearing those great stories that build connection between each other when they're sharing authentic stories with each other, rather than just sort of the surface level party talk that we often endure. So I came home from that weekend going, this is the game. And then to answer the second part of your question, from that idea to a prototype took about a month. It happened really quickly.
That is quick.
Yeah. I mean, I have access to the people and resources I needed to make a prototype. What I didn't have was the knowledge of that industry. And so it took a year for me to kind of build the relationships and understand what it takes to actually, not just create a game. Creating a game is it's hard, but it's not the hardest thing. The hardest thing is figuring out how to get that game into a place where the world can hear about it. And that's kind of the journey I'm on right now. So this is great that I get to talk about it on your podcast. So thanks for the opportunity.
Well, that's no problem at all. Now, I think we should play it to be able to experience Song Saga in all of its glory.
Love that. So the basic gist of the game is that there are cards in the box that are designed to spark a memory of a moment or music that has meaning to you. Okay. And there's no wrong answers. The cards are not meant to be interpreted literally or figuratively. They're just whatever comes to mind when you see the prompt cards is probably the right thing. And whatever your song and story set is what we call them, a set. Whatever that set is that you want to share is fine. Now, in the actual game, when you play it, it's a little bit more complicated than the version we'll play now. But for now, I've pulled 5 cards out of the box at random.
Okay.
These are the memory sparker cards. There's other cards in the box as well, which I encourage people, if they're interested, to just check out the website and you can see more about the game. But the 5 cards I pulled for you, one is Still Have the T-shirt.
Okay.
Another is A Smoky Bar. Third one is Singer You Had a Teenage Crush On. Fourth is School Dance. And fifth option is Your Ex.
We'll go with a T-shirt.
You got it.
I think we'll go with a T-shirt. I go on for the T-shirt. So do I play the song first or do I tell the story first?
Whatever makes sense for you. Some people, when they play, they like to play the song as sort of like a soundtrack to their story. Other people play the song and then the story sort of explains it. And then other people tell a story and like the song is almost like a punchline. So there's no wrong order and you can do it however you feel is right.
Okay, so here is my song. Now, as much as I'd love to play you the songs that me and Eran shared whilst playing Song Saga, I didn't really fancy getting sued for copyright infringement, so I've had to take them out of the recording. But the song I played was Get Back by the Beatles. So that was a Get Back by the Beatles. I mean, it's a great song. We could sit here and listen to the whole song, but
No, it's great. It's great. I've heard it's such a good tune. But now you said, so you played the Beatles Get Back, and the card was Still Have the T-shirt.
Yeah. So
you see the Beatles and buy a T-shirt? How's that even possible?
Well, I didn't. I'm a little bit too young to see the Beatles, I'm afraid. But about 3 or 4 years ago, me and my dad went to see Paul McCartney play live at the O2 in London, and I bought a T-shirt before that show. I don't normally buy T-shirts at gigs, but seeing him was like a once in a lifetime opportunity, so I bought one of the T-shirts. And the reason I played that particular song is during the encore of the concert, he actually brought Ringo Starr out on stage and they played Get Back together. So that's like a real prominent moment. I always remember him bringing Ringo out. I think it was the first time they've been on stage together in about 10 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And what was that like seeing that show with your dad?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, he's been a huge Beatles fan. I mean, he was born in the 1959, so he grew up with the Beatles. So for him to be able to see McCartney as well, I mean, it was a real special thing for both of us. I mean, he brought me up listening to the Beatles as well, so I sort of grew up listening to them, and my love of them comes through his love of their music. So for us to both be at the concert together, it was amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I play a card? Should I play one?
Sure. Yeah. Go for it.
Oh man, I didn't really think about my answer. Okay. Well, school dance. So, so school dance. So the story I remember is, and this is a good example of being able to go laterally off the back of one of these cards. The cliche is the slow dance to Stairway to Heaven, and the awkward discomfort of like trying to figure out who you're going to ask to dance. And then Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven is like the longest song, right? So, if you're trying to like, the teachers are going around telling you keep your hands above the hips and you're putting your hands down, and they come by and raise your hands up and you put your hands down, and teacher comes by, you put your hands up. This is like hip to bum kind of game that you're playing with the person you're dancing with, and also the teachers who are watching you. But what the funny part of that story is, this particular school dance that I'm thinking of, like, I didn't have a date when I went there, and I didn't have a date when I left. And so me and a bunch of guys decided it had snowed while we were inside at the dance. And we had decided that we were going to skitch home. And I don't know if you know what skitching is. Do you guys do that?
I'm not sure. We may call it something different.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. So skitching is basically when there's a nice smooth layer of snow or fresh snow or even sometimes ice on the roads, and the cars are driving relatively slowly. You can kind of run up behind them and grab the bumper and kind of bend your knees and let it kind of pull you along, almost like you're water skiing.
Yeah. But
you're right on the bumper. Do you do that? And do you have a funny name for it?
I'm not sure if there's a funny name for it. I was trying to think what we would call it.
All right. Well, until someone educates you otherwise, it's called skitching. So I hop onto this car thinking I'm going to skitch my way home. And every time I'm about to let go of the bumper, because we're at an intersection where I think the car is going to turn or might turn the wrong way, the car makes the turn in the direction that I want to go. And I'm like, this is great. Like I'm getting a ride home. And it's seriously like for maybe 10, 15 minutes, this car, every time it makes a turn the way that I want it to go towards my house. And then it stops in front of my house.
No.
And it turns out that it was one of my friends driving who knew I was on there. I was like, jerk, I'm freezing back here. You could have just let me right up front. He's like, no, I thought it was hilarious. So
that's brilliant.
Yes, that's my school dance story, skitching home in the snow.
Eran, wrapping up, if you could go right back to the beginning of your career and buy yourself a gift to help to get where you are now, what gift would you give yourself?
What a great question. If I could go back to the beginning of my career and give myself a gift, what would it be? Look, it's kind of hard to put in a box, but I think it's confidence, right? I mean, I think I've always had confidence. I think it's undying confidence, like that. If you can figure out a way to package up something that makes people never doubt their capability and the power of their own intent, that would be something I would love to have more of.
Fantastic. And finally, where can people find out more about you, what you do, and of course, Song Saga?
Great question as well. So yeah, you can learn all about me and the things I'm playing around with at my website, which is eranthomson.com. That's ERAN Thomson without a P, my dry Thompson, so THOMSON. And Song Saga is available now. You can buy it on our website or Amazon.com or Amazon.com.au. We're not on .co.uk yet, but we will be. And for now, the best place is song-saga.com.
Fantastic. Well, Eran, it's been great to have you here. Thanks so much for stopping by the show.
James, thank you. I really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed listening to the past episodes, and keep it up. You're doing great work.
Much appreciated, my friend. Thank you. Thanks again for listening to this episode of You Really Shouldn't Have. Be sure to subscribe to us on your chosen podcast service to make sure you never miss another episode. You can find us on both Twitter and Instagram @BadGiftsPod, as well as online at badgiftspod.com.